Last year, I examined the aircraft alongside order history at Emirates, and it was well received, so it's time to explore that very history at Australian flag carrier Qantas. For over 100 years, the airline has had its fair share of aircraft that it's operated, and each of these core decisions, whether it is aircraft retirements, deliveries, or orders, have played a part in helping get Qantas to where it is today. During the early stages of the Qantas operation, decisions were made to utilise several aircraft types available to them. The fleet would see the introduction of types such as flying boats, which would be crucial for the completion of Double Sunrise, something that is worthy of its own video, and Qantas saw the most of its significant development when it entered the post-World War era. This can also be associated with the eventual rise of the commercial jet. This can also be associated with the eventual arrival of the commercial jet age, albeit in the very early stages of this era. Aircraft such as the Lockheed Constellations operated alongside DC-4s. A handful of other aircraft types would be utilised in the era where nothing truly stuck the landing, as other prospective technologies were beginning to be worked on, and these technologies had the potential to reshape the industry as it was known, if they could actually be rolled out to an adequate standard. The arrival of the 707 really revolutionised air travel, reducing journey times significantly, and this move represented a massive technological leap and allowed Qantas to offer faster and more efficient services. This was an aircraft introduced in 1959. By the 1970s, after over a decade now operating the 707, and thanks to the work of the Incredibles, Qantas would enter another era, the age of the quad-engined jumbo jet. The 747 enabled Qantas to expand its reach globally, connecting Australia to various international destinations. The increased capacity and also at the time efficiency of the 747 played a big role in making long-haul travel more accessible. The company would go on to fly, as we know, several variants of the 747 series before retiring it in 2020. Qantas kept a close eye on developments at the American plane maker throughout the mid to late 1900s, with the introduction of the 767 in the 1980s. This also came following the 747SP's introduction too. The 767, as mentioned, was introduced in the 80s, but wouldn't actually outlive the 747 in the end. But I guess when you consider the multiple new derivatives from the Queen of the Skies family, this did propel the plane to survive longer, although you could also argue that the 747 was a bit harder to replace. The 767s were retired in the 2010s, and as a twin-engine plane with ETOPS, it really redefined how these airlines flew over waters, and provided them with a fantastic alternative for these international services alongside key domestic routing that needed that additional capacity. The 1990s saw the aviation industry only continue to advance, which meant the airline welcomed several aircraft types that would reshape how it offered scheduled services. Qantas would acquire a small fleet of 737s. This the beginning of a multi-decade operation with the iconic Boeing narrowbody that would serve domestic destinations alongside more in the future. Working our way up, the arrival of the Airbus A380 enhanced the airline's operations by adding capacity in a similar fashion to the 767 on key city pairings within Australia, and further, and that was really evident through the flexibility of this aircraft, which was noticeable on international routes, something that is still to this day seen, as the A330 at times could have been found as far as Los Angeles, which is maybe a city you associate with the 787 or the A380 being operated to. Additionally, Qantas's commitment to the 747 program would extend with the arrival of the 747-400, this being the newest iteration at the time and was promised to enhance the long-haul operations for really any airline that would make the decision to acquire it. By the 2000s, the airline would transition from some of the older 737 types it acquired in the 90s to the now seen 737-800. It is a very popular workhorse that has been incredibly reliable since its conception. However, the 2000s would also see Qantas take delivery following a groundbreaking commitment of the world's largest passenger plane. That's right, none other than Airbus's A380. a sheer whale when it came to other aircraft, and Qantas committed in numbers to this type that it believed would redefine how it offered long-haul flights and more than double the capacity across key markets to meet all the growing demand it was witnessing, but also do so in a different manner to the already existing 747. Since its introduction, Qantas has arguably been one of the few airlines that has been happy with the A380 series, despite the struggles the program has had, and especially during the height of the pandemic, travel demand dropping to zero. Qantas was one of the few airlines that reaffirmed its stance that it would intend to bring the type back and fly it for many years after. In the 2010s, Qantas made a significant fleet decision by taking delivery of the Boeing 787. The Dreamliner's fuel efficiency, range, and passenger comfort capabilities marked the next generation of long-haul travel and allowed Qantas to reshape its routes even more so than it had experienced with the arrival of the A380, 747, and other aircraft types throughout its history. The introduction of this plane also marked a strategic move to modernizing the fleet and enhancing the airline's competitiveness. It truly was the new era, and since the first delivery, well, Qantas has been able to launch several new routes that would not have been previously attainable, at least maybe not so in a profitable manner. I am looking directly at routes from Australia to Europe without a single stop, and even to specific cities in the United States. It also, you have to think, relieved pressure on some of those existing wide bodies I've already touched on. By the 2020s, the airline faced challenges unlike any other time, not just including the pandemic, but this was met with other several low points. However, it has remained focused on growing its fleet and has committed to the A350 series for extensive international flying, but notably the first A350 commitment for Project Sunrise. Labelled as the final frontier of travel, the flag carrier hopes to deploy these A350s on flights exceeding 20 hours only in the next few years, removing the element of a stopover and enhancing connectivity to and from Australia to very popular locations worldwide, especially when considering how isolated Australia is to some key travel destinations. Qantas just wants to have a non-stop service. Last year, Qantas also enhanced its order for the 787 by adding additional units, and this included the Dash 10 variant, as part of a commitment to future flying and replacing some of their aging planes. While Qantas has experienced over a century of operations and a fleet that has drastically changed, many would argue now more than ever that fleet needs to grow, and the company is becoming more and more at risk on critical routes to and from Australia of being overtaken by other more ambitious and ready to expand companies. This has already been seen towards the endpoint of last year with United Airlines, which took the title for offering the most flights and connections from North America to Australia. However, there are opportunities for Qantas to reclaim this title and extend to cities globally, but they need to be wary of other airlines looking to strike and take an opportunity away from Qantas. All the new aircraft that are slated to arrive in the coming decade should aid them drastically, but only time will tell. You can let me know your thoughts on the fleet development at Qantas as well as your thoughts on their future. Thanks a lot for watching and your continued support here. It is greatly appreciated. Please do take care, do also be safe. I'll see you next time.